Picture Olympia. The stadium is packed. The crowd is loud. Then, suddenly, the noise begins to die, because a man has entered the track. At first, people only see his shape through the dust: broad shoulders, slow steps, no armor, and no weapon. Then they notice what is across his back. It is not a sack, not a log. It is a full-grown bull. To carry an animal that heavy, a man would need terrifying strength in his legs, his back, his grip, his lungs, and every small muscle that keeps the body from folding under pressure. And this man carries it the entire length of the stadium. His name is Milo of Croton, and for more than 20 years, no wrestler alive could put him on his back. But here is the part that makes no sense. Milo never touched a barbell. He never used a bench press. He never loaded a machine. And yet, he built a body strong enough to carry a bull, throw grown men into the dirt, and become the most feared wrestler in Greece. So how did he do it? The answer isn't random push-ups in the dirt. It is a complete system. 5 brutal bodyweight practices that build strength from the hands, through the hips, into the ground, and back again. No iron, no machines. Just the body, the earth, and another man trying to break you. Subscribe and stay to the end, because the first secret did not even look like training. It started with a hole in the ground. The first practice was the skamma, also known as the physique, and this one is important because it did not begin with wrestling. It began with work. Before a single match was fought, the wrestlers had to make the arena themselves. They took a pickaxe to the hard earth, broke it open, turned the soil over and over, and softened the ground until it became a deep training pit. Then they leveled it with sand. That was the first exercise. Every swing of the pickaxe forced the shoulders, back, arms, grip, hips, and legs to work together. The wrestler had to lift, twist, strike, pull, and repeat it again and again until the ground itself changed shape. It was strength built through labor, not through counting clean little repetitions in a perfect line. And the Greeks took this so seriously that the pickaxe became one of the symbols of wrestling, painted onto their vases the way we might draw a barbell today. Then came the second exercise. The wrestler stepped into the pit he had just made. And deep sand is not normal ground. It moves under you. It steals power from every step. Your foot sinks. Your ankle wobbles. Your hips have to correct. Your core tightens before you even think about it. Even walking becomes resistance training. So when 2 wrestlers trained in the skamma, they were not just practicing throws. They were fighting the ground at the same time. Every push, every turn, every attempt to stay upright forced the body to brace from the feet all the way up through the spine. That is why this practice mattered. The skamma built strength before the match even began. First through digging, then through moving, pushing, and wrestling on unstable ground. And you can still steal this idea today. You do not need an ancient Greek wrestling pit. You need unstable ground and full body labor. Sprint on sand, bear crawl on a beach, push a partner in loose dirt, drag a sandbag, dig, carry, shovel, crawl, and move in a place where the ground does not help you. Because that was the Greek lesson. If you build strength where the ground keeps betraying you, normal ground starts to feel easy. But the dry pit was only the beginning. Somewhere nearby, in the shade of the palestra, there was another pit waiting for them. And this one did not make their footing unstable. It made their entire opponent impossible to hold. The second practice happened in the mud, and to understand why this was so brutal, you first have to understand something strange about Greek training. Ancient athletes often rubbed their bodies with olive oil before exercise. It protected the skin, helped clean away dirt when scraped off afterwards, and became part of the whole ritual of training. So before these wrestlers even stepped into the pit, their skin was already slick. But that wasn't all. Because right beside the dry sand, the palestra kept a wet pit, deliberately soaked and churned into thick, slick clay. The wrestlers called this mud keros, beeswax, for the way it clung to the skin and would not let go. And remember, these men were already coated head to toe in olive oil. So picture it honestly. 2 oiled bodies, caked in wet clay, trying to grab, lift and throw one another. Holding on to anything at all was nearly impossible. That was the entire point. When you cannot grip your opponent, you cannot lean on your hands to control him. You are forced to use the whole body instead. The chest, the hips, the legs, the bend of the spine, to trap and steer a man who keeps sliding out of your arms like a fish off a hook. It turned every exchange into a full-body battle for leverage, with no shortcuts. So the mud pit forced the wrestler to build control without perfect control. It taught him how to stay strong when the body he was fighting refused to be held. And you can steal that idea today without filling your garden with clay and making your neighbors file a report. Instead, train with grip denial. Wrestle no GE. Practice partner pummeling, bear hug holds, body locks, towel grip battles, and controlled clinch drills, where the goal is not to crush the other person, but to keep pressure, position, and balance while they keep trying to slip away. Even a sandbag carry teaches part of the lesson, because a sandbag shifts, sags, and fights your shape in a way a dumbbell never will. That was the forgotten Greek principle. Strength is not only how hard you can squeeze something that cooperates, it is how well you can control something that refuses to be controlled. But sand and mud were only ever the training ground. They set the stage for the one practice that defined a wrestler completely. The third practice was the thing itself, pale, the upright grapple. This was wrestling exactly as the Greeks loved it most, and the rules tell you everything about the kind of strength it built. You won by throwing your opponent to the ground from a standing position. 3 clean falls, and the match belonged to you. You were not allowed to grab below the waist, and pinning a man flat did not even count for anything. It was a standing war of leverage, decided entirely by who could break the other man's balance and put him in the dirt. Think about what that actually demands of a body. You are not pushing a fixed weight along one straight line, the way a barbell travels. You are fighting a living person who shoves back, twists away, drops his level, and resists you from every angle at once. Every muscle has to brace and produce force with no warning and from any position. Stand a wrestler beside a bench presser in a modern sports lab, and the presser may move more weight in his one direction, but the wrestler's body has learned to generate power everywhere, all at the same time, and that is what real-world strength has always looked like. This is the engine that built Milo. Year after year, hurling grown men down into the sand, his whole body fused into one connected weapon. And you can still train this today. The closest modern versions are wrestling, judo, no-gi grappling, and clinch work. But even if you are not joining a combat gym tomorrow, you can borrow the principle. Practice partner pummeling. Fight for inside arm position. Push and pull against a partner without letting your posture break. Use controlled balance-breaking drills where one person resists while the other tries to move them. Learn basic takedown entries safely, on mats, with someone who knows what they are doing. The point is not to hurt anyone. The point is to train against a body that reacts, because that was the Greek secret inside Pale. Strength is not proven when everything stays still. It is proven when the thing in front of you keeps changing. But even raw grappling power had a weak point, and the cleverest wrestlers learned to attack it in a place almost nobody bothered to train. The fourth practice was the war of the hands, and the practice itself was exactly that, hand fighting. Before 2 wrestlers ever locked their bodies together, they squared off and fought at the fingertips, hand against hand, wrist against wrist, each man straining to break the other's grip and win control before the real bout had even begun. The Greeks called it acrocheirismos. From a distance, it can look almost gentle, a slow tangle of hands. It was anything but. This is where a wrestler built a crushing grip, forearms like rope and tendons like cable, the hidden strength that quietly decides who controls whom the instant two bodies meet. And a few men carried it to a genuinely terrifying place. There was a wrestler named Leontiskos of Messene, who took the Olympic crown twice, in 456 BC and again in 452 BC. He was not admired for graceful throws. He won by seizing his opponent's fingers and bending them straight back until they snapped. His rivals would rather surrender than have their hands destroyed. The Greeks had actually outlawed finger breaking a full century before he competed, and the judges could legally flog you for it. And Leontiskos still won 2 Olympic titles doing exactly that. They nicknamed him the Fingertip Man. That alone tells you how deeply the Greeks understood the grip. The strongest body in the world is worthless if it cannot hold on, because the hands are where all that strength is finally delivered. And this one is easy to steal today. With a partner, play the same game they did. Square off and fight for grip and wrist control, each trying to peel the other's hands away without locking up. On your own, simply learn to hang, gripping a bar or a sturdy branch and holding your full body weight as long as you can. Then add towel hangs or heavy carries. A few minutes a day builds hands that do not quit. Now, a wrestler had the conditioning, the control, and a grip that could break bone. Only one thing remained to turn him from merely strong into truly unstoppable, and it was the most explosive movement of them all. The fifth and final practice was the throw itself, the body lift. To win at Pale, you could not simply outmuscle a man by slow degrees. You had to tear him off the ground and drive him down, all of it in one explosive burst. So the Greeks drilled it relentlessly, hooking an arm, dropping the hips low beneath an opponent, and launching a full-grown adult up over the hip or clean overhead before slamming him into the sand. No weight you can buy in a shop ever moves the way a panicking human being does. He fights the lift the entire way up. This is pure explosive power, what modern coaches call rate of force development, the ability to pour out maximum strength in a fraction of a single second. It is the exact difference between a man who is merely strong and a man who is genuinely dangerous. And the Greeks built it with nothing but another person's body, hoisted and hurled again and again until the movement became pure instinct. Every throw was a deadlift, a clean, and a slam folded into one motion, performed against living, struggling resistance. You can train this today even if you never throw a single soul. With a partner and a soft mat, drill lifting and carrying each other. Then add slow, controlled throws. On your own, chase that same explosive burst with jump squats, broad jumps, and explosive push-ups. Or heave a heavy, awkward sandbag from the floor to your shoulder again and again. Because an uneven load fights you the way a body does. Move fast, rest fully, and stop the moment your speed starts to fade. Now stack all 5 together, and something remarkable comes into view. The dig, the mud, the grapple, the grip, the throw. Not one of them works on its own. Each one quietly builds the body that the next one needs. The Greeks were never just collecting exercises. They were assembling a complete system with no equipment whatsoever. And the living proof of that system walked the earth in the shape of men who did things that simply should not be possible. That is what these methods produced. Not a man who could shift a heavy bar along a straight line, but a man whose entire body had become a single explosive instrument, strong in every direction, against anything that dared to move. They had none of the equipment you can walk in and use today. No machines, no dumbbells, no apps counting your reps. Only their own bodies, the bare earth, and the will to use both. So, with an entire world of iron sitting at your fingertips, what exactly is your excuse? The ancient way exists to recover what was lost, the simple, brutal methods that built the strongest people who ever lived. If this changed the way you see strength, then you already know what to do.